Okay, let's get started. So welcome everybody to the latest in our Survive and Thrive series of webinars from Sussex Innovation in collaboration with Gatwick Diamond Business. And just to mention, as you can see from the slide that I'm sharing at the moment, we're able to bring you these seminars as a result of funding from the European Regional Development Fund. So thanks very much to them for their support with this. I've already covered the comments and Q&A housekeeping. So just remains to introduce myself and my guests on the panel today. So I'm Joseph Bradfield. I'm the PR and Communications Advisor at Sussex Innovation. And my role, while being quite varied and involving a lot of different platforms and channels, does involve some elements of crowdfunding. I've been involved with several different campaigns involving our members and our wider community, mainly helping out with the kind of messaging and content side of things and helping people to script videos and put together their kind of pitch deck and that side of things. But I'm far from being the biggest expert in the room. We've got with us today Jes Bailey, who's a crowdfunding specialist and the founder of Crowdfund 360, which aims to empower people to increase their social impact through crowdfunding consultancy. We're also joined by Anna Sward, the founder of Protein Pow. Protein Pow is a food brand for health-conscious people who want to lead an active lifestyle without compromising their love for delicious snacks. Sounds great to me. And Anna's got some interesting experience with crowdfunding in the past that she'll be sharing. And our third panelist is Daniel Sell, who's the founder of Melsonian Arts Council, which is a publisher of independent auteur-created role-playing games, books, magazines, and board games. So without further ado, let's get into our starter questions. And if our discussion kind of prompts anything, any thoughts from our attendees, as I say, please do fire over your questions in the Q&A section and we'll get into that in the second half of the session. Just to note as well before we start that, that Anna may have to duck out halfway through this session as she's dealing with some management of logistics at the moment at a bit of short notice, but we'll carry on. So I thought I'd start with Jes, who's going to really be providing the holistic view of crowdfunding for us today. Just what kinds of project tend to be a good fit for crowdfunding, and what sort of things do business owners need to be considering before they decide whether it's the right route for them?
Sure. So there's a few things that you need to consider before thinking about crowdfunding. So first up, it would be what type of crowdfunding. Are you going for rewards-based crowdfunding where you're getting customers and selling your product? Or is it equity crowdfunding and you're getting investors? The first thing to consider to those two is like how established your business is. You can't equity crowdfund if you don't really already have customers and a track record. So that's the first thing to look at, which type you're going down. If you then go down the rewards crowdfunding, then the easiest campaigns and organizations to crowdfund successfully are those with innovative, tangible products. So something that I can't already go and buy off the shelf, because if I could go buy it off a shelf, then why would I, wait essentially up to like a year to get the product? It's a pre-sale campaign, but if I could go buy it in a shop, I'll just go buy it in a shop. So thinking about products that are tangible, products that are not too expensive, but also not too cheap, because obviously otherwise then you'll need, if they're really cheap, you'll need thousands and thousands of people to buy them in order to raise like £10,000 or something. But if they're really, really expensive, it's too much of a gamble because, the success rate of crowdfunding campaigns in general is so low that they're unlikely to succeed. When we're also looking at it, it's looking at whether or not your business already has some kind of presence. as to whether you can do the rewards crowdfunding. So again, the further down the development of the project, the further down the development of starting up your business, the easier it is to crowdfund. Obviously, you need a crowd in the title, crowdfunding. So having that crowd already there before the crowdfunding campaign makes it easy as well. Services are much harder to do rewards crowdfunding for. They're pretty easy for the equity crowdfunding, but they're not impossible. So we've done several campaigns for service-based crowdfunding campaigns, service-based organizations, but it's then having to think a lot more creatively as to what products and tangible products you can give away during that crowdfunding campaign. Just because the general population still thinks websites, apps are free and not that expensive to make, which is a lie.
Yeah, I certainly second that. Having sort of worked on campaigns specifically in the kind of digital platform kind of area before, it's a real challenge to kind of communicate what the backer is getting for their money for that kind of proposition. Just moving on to Anna, you've explored the possibility of raising money through equity crowdfunding in the past, and you participated in an accelerator before deciding to go with the private investment route, which seemed a better fit for your business. Could you share that story with us and sort of how you came to decide that wasn't the right route for you at the time?
Yeah, so I created Protein Pow as a brand several years ago, actually. And the first few years was basically focused on content. I had cookbooks out and kind of was focused on just pushing this idea of cooking with protein powder and creator following and everything else around that. But I was focused on Protein Pow being a consumer brand for a ready-to-eat snack. So in 2019, we launched our first ready-to-eat product, and it's cookie dough, ready-to-eat cookie dough, high protein, gluten-free, vegan, no sugar added. And it launched in Whole Foods and Planet Organic last year. And towards the middle of the year, I got a listing from Sainsbury's. And at that point, I knew that I needed to raise money. I had begun a few conversations on the equity front to raise the money from private individuals. But then completely, almost by random, I saw a link on Facebook that said, we're launching this brand new accelerator program through one of the primary crowdfunding platforms, where you come to us and for 6 to 8 weeks, we prepare you to crowdfund, and then you launch your campaign. And at that point, I thought, we have over 126,000 followers on social media. Our website has over 18 million views to date. I thought this is going to be great because we have the fans, we have the followers, and I thought crowdfunding is based on funding by the crowd, right? That was kind of my main idea was, if we have the fans and we have an awesome product, that's all we need. And so I signed on to the program. And then what I learned through actually, going through learning the step-by-step what you need to have a successful campaign, I realized that the funding you're getting, around 50 to 60% of, you can do more than 60%, awesome, but at least 50% of that money is coming from private investors. Sometimes it's friends, family, people but most of that money, so say you're raising on an equity crowdfunding 100K, right? I was under the impression before I did this that you go on there, someone raised 100K from 0 to 100K, right? And what I learned through doing this program is that actually you need to come to the table with 50K at least already committed to you from people So it's not really strangers, right? So I kind of reassessed what the right fit for me was in terms of time, because by then the Sainsbury's listing was going to be in a few months, I didn't have time to go and raise, I think I was wanting to raise 100K at the time. I didn't have the time to go and raise 50K from individual people and then do the fundraise and then do everything else and then wait around for it, while at the same time committing all the funds you need to crowdfund. Because again, naively, I thought all you need is an awesome brand, content, and an awesome product. But in reality, you also need to have a budget to create this amazing video. You need to advertise on the platform as well. That's one of the options they kind of push you to do, which is a few £1,000s to just kind of have your your campaign go up in the main page and so on. So there was all this money that needed to put in up front and all this time that needed to put in to get the money from private investors. And at that point, I just realized that the right answer for me was just to raise the money from private individuals, and that's what I did. And we launched in Sainsbury, and everything is going great.
And sort of knowing what you know now, is crowdfunding something you would be considering returning to in the future? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think crowdfunding could actually work. I think my experience was, I mean, you could say bad, but mostly because the way the program was presented wasn't the way the program was, the way crowdfunding actually works. I think if you're a company that has, you know, you have 20 people that want to give you 5, 10, 20K, but no one wants to be the one investor that gives you the whole sum you're looking for, then it's actually a good way to put, you know, small, quote unquote, amounts of money into the same place. And then you have your proof of concept in the sense of you launch, you have money there, then people go and fund campaigns that are funded by people already. So no one goes and funds something that's at 0%. I realize people that launch and the companies that launch, they're at, you know, we're live and we already have 70%. And that's the image they put out there. And I think often as a consumer, you're like, oh my God, they just launched and they already have 70%. This must be amazing. Where do I sign up and give them my money now? You know, take it all. But what you don't realize is that that money was it took months for them to get there, and it was already committed to them. So I think if you're in a position where you have people willing to together give you, say, 50K, 75, even 100K. I know someone that had 200K pre-committed by private investors. And then you go on with all this money and then you top it up by the crowd. So I feel like it should be more like crowd top up as opposed to like crowdfunding, or, you know, because it's the strangers are topping up your fund as opposed to the crowd of strangers giving you money. So I think understanding that, then, you know, it's not a bad idea. It just requires a lot of time, a lot of work and resource to actually make it work and make sure you have the right media out there, the right PR campaign to push it. And I'm here, you know, I'm sure Jes is, you know, well versed in all of this, as she probably focuses on this and making sure that, you know, when you start the process, you have everything at your disposal to make it a success.
Sorry,
yeah, if I can add to that, what Anna was saying is, yeah, so crowdfunding is 3 things. It's the strategy, it's creativity, and it's so much psychology. So an example that Anna was giving there was like, you see a campaign at 0%, you don't give money. You see a campaign at 70% and you're like, this is doing really well, I'm going to give money. And it's the same with everything, you know. If you're opening a restaurant and you've got 2 Italian restaurants next to each other, if one's completely empty and one's quite busy, which one are you going to go in? Even though you might have to wait longer for the food. That's why, you know, when you go into a restaurant and it is quite empty, they sit you in the window. They make you go forward, front of house, to make it look like, come on in. And it's the same psychology that works for a crowdfunding campaign. Unless you've hit that 60% funded mark, people that don't know you aren't going to give you money. When you're at that 30% to 60%, that's your like social media following, email list, people that have bought from you before. Up to that 30%, it's really the people that love you because they want you to succeed and they trust you. So crowdfunding is all about trust. It's like, I tell my clients, if you ask your mum for 50 quid, if you ask me for 50 quid, and if you go out onto the street right now and ask the first person you see for £50, you know, which one is more likely to give you the money? Obviously it's your mum. She knows you, she trusts you, she's going to be the first person to give to your campaign. Then it's probably going to be me. We've chatted a few times, you know, but I'm going to want to know more about your project to make sure that my money's going to be worthwhile in investing. And then finally, that person on the street, either they're going to ignore you, punch you, or like actually think this is quite a good idea, I want to know more, but it's going to be so much harder to get the money from them. So it's all that work before you launch the campaign to build up that crowd and basically get them to be at the same point as our relationship, or, you know, you and your mum, that close, so that they're ready into it, not understanding all of that or not knowing it. And unfortunately, the platforms, they don't tell you all of this before you go into it, which, you know, in my opinion, being independent of platforms, they should.
That brings us on.
Brands that don't want you to know in many ways, because they want you to think that a crowd of strangers was so passionate about their product that they funded them 120%, you know, because you can overfund and so on. So, you know, they don't want to say, oh my gosh, we just raised 200K, you know, 170 came from, you know, our neighbors. Yay. You know, it's not optically, it doesn't have the same impact.
Which probably back in 2012 to 2015 was the case. But now with every Tom, Dick and Harry running a crowdfunding campaign, your audience now is smaller because people have been burnt in the past and they like don't want to give again because they gave to campaigns that failed. And there's so many similar campaigns that money is having to be spread out as well.
Yeah.
Talking of the strength of your community, that brings me on really nicely to Daniel. So your specialism really is in the more kind of Kickstarter style campaigns and using that kind of crowdfunding for product launches, and you've been pretty successful with launching new books and games in that way. So I'd like to hear a little bit of the Melsonian Arts story, and also what your feeling is about sort of arts and entertainment businesses, why they tend to work well for these kinds of campaigns.
I mean, we've always seen fundraising as a means to an end. We're quite compared to most people who are doing books and games, Kickstarters and so on. We're quite bare bones. We want the money for the book. We don't do much of a song and dance about it. We very rarely make videos. Yeah, we're quite grumpy in our fundraising. It seems to go quite well. We keep it quite simple. People are coming to get a thing. We make the thing, and then they get the thing. We make most of our. We're more interested in the tail end. The Kickstarter is just the kind of the seed money to get a project finished, and then everything after that is more important. We're yeah. I mean, a book has quite a long life. I guess compared to many things, but yeah, I mean we started out doing just little magazines and things, which only required like £500. I mean £500 on Kickstarter is not a lot of people. You don't need a lot of people to do that. And then with and then every year it just ticks up pretty much in line with our community. Our Kickstarters are pretty much tied to how large a kind of a community impact we have at any time. In general, we've been really good at guessing where a Kickstarter will end as well. Like we can pretty much within like a couple of maybe £1,000, we can probably say what any given project will make, barring some kind of unexpected exposure. But because we're familiar with our community and our fans and how much things have sold in the past and whatnot, it's quite stable, believe it or not, considering what it is.
I guess it's because you have that kind of dedicated fan base that is waiting to see what you'll do next. You already have that kind of Jes was talking about the kind of middle part of the campaign, or it might have been Anna actually, sorry, who was talking about the middle part of the campaign where you're going out to mailing lists and social media followers, and that's where you've already got some traction.
Yeah. I mean, we are 100% like customer based. I mean, in the past we worked with some shops and distributors to raise money as well a little bit, but we don't do that anymore just because they're usually a lot of hassle, and we're not talking like large amounts of money, so it's straight to the customers, and then everything else comes after that.
So we've touched quite a lot on the vast amount of work that can be involved in pulling off a successful campaign. So Jes, I was wondering if you could kind of talk us through the the steps that that people need to take before a campaign launches to get things up and running?
Sure. So as I said, strategy, creativity, psychology. So this is obviously just the strategy, and all our clients follow essentially this same strategy that I'm going to lay out here. We've done 65 crowdfunding campaigns with a 83% success rate, so it works. Whereas the UK average success rate is only 21% of campaigns actually reach their financial goal. So first up is obviously planning, like what type of crowdfunding, when are you launching, how much are you raising, which platform? All of those things can severely affect your project. If you choose the wrong platform, already you've put yourself at a negative, starting point. If you choose the wrong months, already you've put yourself at a negative starting point. So looking at all of that. Then it's the story. What story are you selling, and how are you emotionally connecting with the audience for that story? That's going to affect every piece of comms that comes out after this. Then obviously it goes into building the crowd. So who's that target market? Where are you finding them? Where are they hanging out? What are we asking them for? If you want to raise less than 7,000, asking them for money is fine. If you're looking for more than £7,000, which to be honest, you probably want to be for the work it's going to take, you need to be asking them for more than just the cash. So it's looking at who's got networks, who's got influence, how can we build that crowd as wide as possible, because we're going to lose people at every stage. After the building of the crowd, we're then like, we've got our story, we know how much we're raising, what platform, we've got our crowd. Let's start actually making that crowdfunding project page on the platform that you choose. People will only give your project page 4.2 seconds of attention before they've decided, this is interesting, I want to know more, potentially give them money, or I want to go back and look at cat videos on YouTube. So that first instinct has to be great. So we want to have the highest return on that page. We want to have the lowest bounce rate. So that's a key important page to make. After that, it's then about communicating the campaign. What email, social media, PR, guerrilla marketing, offline marketing, user-generated content are we doing? We also want to create all of that before you launch the campaign, because once you've launched, you're going to be really stressed. You're going to have phone calls, you're going to be having interviews, you're going to be like telling people you're crowdfunding. We don't want you to miss that opportunity that says, we've hit 50% of our crowdfunding target. These small things you can create before you launch. However stressed you are now, you're going to be more stressed during that campaign. So we do all of that before the launch of the campaign. Then you've got the campaign, 5 weeks, it should go as we plan. Just like Daniel said, we can predict how the campaign is going to look, how much you're going to raise, when you're going to be the most stressed. So we use that to our advantage for the clients. After the campaign's ended, we have the last stage of a crowdfunding campaign, which is the follow-up. You've put all that hard work in, all that time, all that effort. We want to make sure that like 75% of those backers buy again from you in the future, whether that's another crowdfunding campaign or whether that's just they become loyal customers. You don't want to miss that opportunity to turn them into regular customers because you've put all that hard work in. So we close it after that. We take a minimum of 8 weeks before the launch of the campaign, although if people came to us with no crowd, then obviously we'd take longer because that's when it really, or they want to raise more money, it's going to take more time to do that. Then you've got the crowdfunding campaign, and then we work with them again for a month afterwards to make sure they know what they need to do to turn all those people into the continued customers. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah, just those few things. That's raised the question, going back to Dan. So could you speak a little to how you've built and kind of managed that community of followers that you have that back your campaigns, and how you keep them invested beyond the campaign they're donating to right now?
Well, I mean, we're quite, I guess you say, organic about it, or I don't know how you describe it. It's just like because the people that are making these books, like me and like the artists and the other writers and things, we are the product to a large degree. So and most of us have online presences, so it's not really something we need to often think about very hard. It's just it's really just managing the kind of pools of people that everyone is bringing in just by merit of being there. I mean, because it's a like a art, popular culture kind of area. It's very people identify with, you know, the products, the books quite heavily. So it's quite easy to get investment, like, you know, emotional investment from people. Like, I mean, people care about the book that they have an interest in becoming something that other people have an interest in, so they can share that. I mean, like you would with a TV series or whatever. Like, you want other people to talk about it with. So yeah, I mean, we do mostly just boring stuff. Like, mechanically, we have, you know, adverts and a bit of marketing, and we do some bits and bobs with like YouTubers and review sites, but nothing too exciting, to be honest.
So it really shows the how the industry or the sector really dramatically changes the the kind of effort that you need to go to get people invested, I guess. So we've had a few questions coming in on the Q&A from our attendees. Thanks, and do keep them coming in. Jes has been kindly responding to these as they've been coming in, but for the benefit of anyone who's not reading the chat, so we had Gautam ask about the scope of crowdfunding for B2B ventures. Jes, what's your thoughts on that?
B2B only is going to work for equity crowdfunding, not rewards crowdfunding, because obviously rewards crowdfunding is individual people buying a product. So if it's not B2C, then it won't work for that, really. It would be really, really hard, and you'd have to like go around it a crazy way. I wouldn't bother.
That reminds me, actually, I've been speaking to one of our members earlier this week who heard that we were running this event, and he's a finance specialist, and raised the idea of P2P, peer-to-peer lending, as another kind of area of the crowdfunding kind of milieu. And well, his key takeaway was he talked about a platform that's recently gone into a resolution event, as they describe it, which has resulted in a few people losing their money. So his advice was always read the small print, and particularly what the kind of legalities are if a platform folds. But have you had experience with peer-to-peer, Jes?
Yeah, so like someone else has written in here about the funding via loans. There's also debt crowdfunding, there's real estate crowdfunding, there's peer-to-peer lending. Like, we don't work in any of those industries, just because it's not something that I personally believe in, because of the situation which you described is so common. So we only work in equity crowdfunding, rewards crowdfunding, and donation crowdfunding. Also, along the lines of that platform situation that you mentioned, like, there are over 2,000 platforms in the world, and like WordPress has a template to set up a crowdfunding platform. But again, like, there's only probably less than 20 that I would actually recommend you ever use, because they pop up and they disappear so frequently. There's niche ones. There was a famous music niche one which went bust, and loads of people lost their money. Equally, if I as a backer don't trust this website, I'm not going to give it my credit card details. So unless, like, you know, everyone kind of knows Kickstarter, Crowdfunder, Crowdcube Seeders, but if it's a random one, you've obviously decreased your target market, and you know, you as a project creator are going to get so much less support in terms of like the data and the analytics behind it, just because there's no funding there.
I'd like to open it up to the whole panel, really, because there's been a few questions coming in about the financial side of things, and how you kind of define and set your targets, how you decide how much marketing budget you're going to actually spend on hitting those targets, and and also the rewards involved. So if we sort of go around the panel, how would you kind of start thinking about those kind of decisions? I'm conscious Anna will need to duck out shortly, so maybe we'll start with her.
In regards to crowdfunding, I mean, I didn't end up doing it. So we never launched the campaign. But I know that in the group, the few of them that did raise put aside a good between 2 and 5K for just a video creation with a professional videographer, 1 to 2K for banners and so on, and a lot of Facebook marketing and direct to consumer kind of marketing through newsletters and so on. But again, I don't have a personal experience to share just because I didn't, go ahead.
Do feel free to shout if you do need to leave, by the way.
Go. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a chilled delivery of cookie dough because the weather is insane and it's a bit of a crisis. I have to deal with it by 3. Yeah, so need to call a bunch of places. So I'm sorry if anyone has any direct questions or anything for me. I'm available and around on social media and my email. I'm happy to share it. It's anna@proteinpod.com. And yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, Anna. We really appreciate it. And just for the benefit of the audience, we will be sending around a follow-up email after the webinar, just with links to the companies that have been involved today and any other resources that we touch upon and want to share. Yeah, let's carry on with that question actually of how you define the targets and the money to spend on a campaign.
So we've done campaigns rewards campaigns up to £50,000. We don't do any ad spend. So the only spend that a client would do up to 50, if they don't know a videographer that they already have connections with. If you've got a friend that makes videos, do it. Save the money in that respect. But we do all the social media advertising, email, PR organically, because like Daniel said, building up that organic audience that actually knows and trusts you, so much better than paying for people that may or may not give you money. When you're looking at raising over £50,000, yeah, then we recommend that you have some kind of ad spend if the audience isn't big and engaged enough. But we look at crowdfunding to be a sustainable way of funding your business. It's not a one-time money thing. Money does not grow off trees as crowdfunding, as Anna has explained. So for us, it's actually more important to build up an audience that's going to be loyal to you in the long run, rather than that you've bought in quick.
And Dan, your thoughts?
I think just touched on something there. In many ways, we also don't see Kickstarter as this big money thing. It is the biggest thing that Kickstarter is really for us specifically. I don't know if this applies to across the board, but it is a very affordable advertising. Because often, I mean, like some books that we kickstart, we don't really need to kickstart them financially, but Kickstarter just gives you this whole just little ecosystem and kind of the expectations of advertising. So you can make a big song and dance for a couple of weeks about something, and I mean they take 5%, which is less than we spend on Facebook every month. It's really good just for that, just to create some excitement, and I think for people who in my industry at the very least, I think it's good for people to do, because it creates a structure for hype. We're not like a big computer game company, for instance, would have their own system for getting that kind of our game's coming out at this time and we're going to do this and there's this event and this thing. Little book creators don't have that and think they think it's crass for the most part. But they need to do it, and Kickstarter creates this kind of just mechanical way that they can do it, which is very useful, I think.
It creates a kind of a pivot, if you like, that you can kind of center all of your communications and all your marketing activity around for a period.
If you're really shy about it, which a lot of people just starting out are, you can be like, well, you know, it's Kickstarter. Oh, what can you do? It's like, oh, it's maybe be 2 weeks. If you know, you can blame it on Kickstarter. They can be your little sin eater. They can just, you know, Kickstarter's over. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Thanks for funding my project. Yeah.
Cool. Ooh, an interesting question here in the Q&A. I want to donate some of the proceeds from my business to 2 charities. Would involving them at crowdfunding level help me? What's your thoughts, Jes?
Just donate it to the 2 charities. Choose your 2 charities and make a donation regularly. That way you're not losing any of that money that you are donating to the charities to platform fees or payment fees.
Sounds smart to me. A related question that's occurred to me, actually. We've worked in the past with quite a few charities and community groups who are launching campaigns specifically on the Crowdfunder platform. And similar to a kind of B2B proposition, it's quite difficult to sort of cut through the noise when it comes to funding those kind of things, particularly at the moment when there are so many great causes out there that need funding. So what's your advice for anyone who's in the charity sector who's trying to make a splash?
So there's a few things. So again, that's a really key point. Like, you know, if you are a small organization, maybe you're like a local bookshop in Sussex, for example, you wouldn't do a Kickstarter because you're now competing against like the whole world and like huge marketing budgets and book publishers out of San Francisco or whatever. You'd use like Crowdfunder because that's where your target market is in the UK. My advice for charities or anyone really at this time is now, although like we're living in a crazy time now is like such a good time to do crowdfunding. All my campaigns that are live during coronavirus have hit their targets much faster than I expected them to. So one hit their 20K target within 2 days, one hit their 50K target within the first week, and the other one extended both of their stretch goals. So like people are still giving money, and especially now, in order to stand out from the crowd, it's to make that campaign as tangible as possible. So it's not just like, you know, we need the money to survive COVID-19, but it's like, what's that money being spent on and what is that impact? And it's all about that impact, the case studies, the statistics, the hope and the inspiration that's really going to like set your campaign apart from the others. And right now, because there's so much competition, like you mentioned, if we look at those 3 elements of crowdfunding: strategy, creativity, psychology, like I can't stress this enough, it's making that creativity the most important thing. Everyone's going to hit 50% of their target, fingers crossed. How can you make yours more visual, more appealing? If you're like a dog charity, instead of using that general green bar that shows you've hit 50%, turn an image of a dog into that bar and, you know, paint the dog up to 50%. At least then you're standing out against all of those other campaigns showing they've hit the same amount of money. So it's really using creativity on your side. Like we live on the beach, we've got nature, like we can't go outside that much, but we've got all of these opportunities. Can you build a sandcastle that shows how much money you've raised? Can you, you know, do something with the pebbles, something like that? Anything to make your campaign pop in the multitude of social media imagery, emails that we're getting daily. We're all spending more time online now as well, which is great because we've got that captive audience, but it's how to capture them when everyone else is doing the same thing.
And I guess at the sort of intersection of the creativity side and the psychology side, we should talk a bit about the rewards structure, which is particularly relevant for a kind of product-based fundraise. How do you? Well, let's start with Dan. How do you identify what the kind of tiers of rewards are for your customers, and how do you kind of show a bit of love to the people who are backing you with larger figures?
Well, initially we made the mistake of worrying too much about that stuff. Like we were, you know, we had escalating. I think like on our the book that's currently paying the bills for us. It was like we maybe 5 campaigns ago, I think now. We offered all kinds of stuff. We offered like customized books and limited editions and some other bits and bobs. Nothing, you know, that's too crazy. But when you do it at scale, it becomes absolutely nightmarish. And we, over time, I mean, every subsequent campaign, we've got less and less interesting with what we've been offering. I think we've narrowed it down to like the basic stuff. Like people like little badges, people like custom dice, they're neat, and people will like I think there is an understanding that they will be overpriced as kind of a thank you for giving us too much money. Here's a little doodad. It doesn't necessarily need to be of value. Like I think it's fine to make it clear that we're charging you too much. This is the tier for people with too much money that like us. We'll give you a little thing that no one else will have, and it's like low effort, but it's unique and it's yours. And thank you. And I think that's worked out really well for us. It's because I mean it's you know we're not trying to it's not an exchange of value. It's a gift with a little thank you letter, I guess, in a way.
Really good advice. Jess, any thoughts to add on that?
For rewards tiers, yeah, you want to have like 7 different rewards. If any more, too much confusion, too much choice, and I can't make a choice, so I leave. Any less, and there's like not enough choice. There's not something I want. You have like the beginning perks where it's like, you know, a hug, a thank you, the dice, the small things. And then you go into like your products and kind of upselling them. And then, yeah, you go for some ridiculously high reward at the end for someone with too much money that, you know, maybe they buy the whole thing, maybe they sponsor, maybe they get a character name. You make those ones your kind of PR perks. So you could write a PR article about that. Or you make them, you know, the super exclusive money can't buy options where they can really like become a part of the team. So the average crowdfunding pledge is £25 for rewards crowdfunding, or £99 for tech reward crowdfunding. But in general, look at your RRP. Like the product price is probably going to be your average donation pledge size, because obviously people are coming in to buy the product. You again want to be creative and think about the things and make sure that those merch that you're making, if you're making merch, are relevant to the campaign. Charities, you don't need this. What you need to do is focus on the impact that money is going towards. So £25 can pay for, like, you know, art materials for 3 people for our art therapy class or something like that. Or, you know, £75 pays for dog food for 4 of our dogs for a week, something like that. That's what they want. They don't want a t-shirt that says we help save a dog charity, because they want the money to go to the good causes. Also, charities, sneaky tip, if you do the donation impact levels instead of rewards, you can also claim gift aid, which obviously is going to increase the amount that you can raise.
That's really key for any kind of community project, I guess, is making the impact of the donation tangible to people and giving it some weight in the real world. You just briefly mentioned technology crowdfunders there. We've had a question from Mustafa saying, how would crowdfunding campaigns differ for hard tech companies versus more traditional businesses?
Like the strategy doesn't. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's going to differ is really in terms of like your audience, your stories, maybe how much education you've got to give the audience before you can raise. But in general, all companies are pretty much following the same strategy. One of my favorite times of my 3.5 years of business as a crowdfunding consultant was when I had two campaigns running simultaneously. One was sustainable fishing technology. So you put these lights on fishing boats, and basically like cod like blue light, mackerel like red light. And if you put the blue lights on, the mackerel come, the red lights, cod come, the red lights on the mackerel come, and it cuts down bycatch, which is obviously great for fishermen and for the EU legislation. They ran their campaign at the same time as a skin colored lingerie for women of color brand, because like all underwear is only like one skin tone. Two completely different businesses, and they were both following that same structure. One is obviously quite traditional, one was, you know, crazy fishing technology. And I was just telling them the same things in each of the calls, and then you do it then with your creativity and with your target market, but the strategy and psychology was the same.
I guess it's as with the general rules of any kind of exercise in running a business, it's just knowing your audience and
that's the most important thing with a crowdfunding campaign, I swear. Like, just know your audience.
I've noticed we've got a few people raising hands in the chat. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to getting people on to ask questions, but please do post them in the Q&A section, and we'll try and cover as many as we can in the next 10 to 15 minutes. What shall we touch on next? We've got a question here. I'm not quite sure I understand this one. What's the percentage of a successful campaign?
So in the UK, 21% of crowdfunding campaigns reach their fundraising target. That's on average. On platforms it differs. So like Kickstarter, 34% of campaigns reach their funding goal, because on Kickstarter you need to have a prototype. You need a little bit more proof that you know what you're doing before you can launch. On Indiegogo, the success rate, you don't need any of that, is only 10% of campaigns reach their funding goal. On other platforms, a lot of them don't stress it because it is lower than like 30%. In clients that we work with have a success rate of 83% reaching their fundraising goals. Some platforms or some consultants will have a success rate of 100%, which is obviously amazing. But you also want to look at how many campaigns they've had on their platforms or that they've worked with. So, you know, Kickstarter's had millions of campaigns over the last, what, like 8-10 years now. So obviously, like, their success rate's probably going to be lower than a platform that's only had 5 campaigns in the last year that can really like make those a success. You shouldn't really worry too much about the overall success rates, just because, you know, you're so different to every other campaign that's been out there. You know, you're not a lingerie or you're not a sustainable fishing campaign. So don't worry too much about pinning your hopes on that sort of thing. Instead, look at ones within your industry that have failed, have succeeded, and kind of see what you can learn from those themselves.
Question from Bill saying, can you give me a probability of sales percentages from easy to impossible?
I didn't really understand this question.
I think what we're saying is dependent on the sort of number of rewards and the target raised, what's reasonable. I guess it's the same answer. It depends entirely on the product. Some things are very expensive.
What we do with our clients at the beginning is look at, okay, like, how much do you want to raise? What is the platform fee and the payment processing fee? Add those two together, and then divide that by your product price. And that's how many people, like on average, you need to give to your crowdfunding campaign to reach your target. Then from that number, maybe that number's like, you know, so for example, if you want to raise £10,000, if you do it at the moment, you know, platform fees are not taking anything. So 10,000 divided by 25 is the average backing campaign. If you don't have an RRP, you need 400 people to give you money. If your social media is not, you know, 400 people big, if your email list is not 400 people big, then you are not ready to launch right now. Equally, not everyone that you have in your network is going to give money. So then it's looking at what's your email opening rate, what's your social media engagement rate, and then working out, like, there's no magic, it's maths, it's really annoying logic, and then working out how big that audience needs to be before you can launch your campaign to reach that target, or finding a middle ground, lowering that target and making sure then you've got the right numbers of backers ready for launch. We've got a calculator, like an Excel formula spreadsheet that we use with our clients to help them understand that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I'll have to borrow that off you at some point. We've had a question from an anonymous attendee who says, as a fundraising coach themselves, they find it sometimes difficult to deal with clients convincing them of the need for that much detailed planning before starting a campaign. We've stressed this point a lot, but how would you convince someone of that, the value of that?
There's a few things, like it's trying to make people understand it in terms they can. That's why I give the restaurant analogy, because everyone's been in that situation when they've gone to a restaurant. They've all looked at an empty one and been like, no. That's the same thing people will think about with your crowdfunding campaign. Other things we look at are, you don't go into an investment meeting having done absolutely no research. You don't apply for a grant application having not researched what they give money for. You don't launch a business without knowing your target market. And it's looking at how much time and effort you put into all of those things. Why is crowdfunding any different? How is it easier to convince one person to give you money than apparently to convince 100 people to give you money? Also, what we look at is another question that came up in the chat was about how much commission do I charge for clients? And again, we don't charge commission, we charge a project fee. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. So firstly, psychologically, you're not going to do the work if you've not got your foot in the game, because it's a lovely day outside. I'm sure if this was a paid for webinar, there'd be more people that actually turned up that said they would than like if it's a free one and the weather's great outside. Equally, if you can't go hustle a few £1,000s to pay us to run your campaign, how do you think you're going to go hustle £100,000 to actually make your crowdfunding campaign work? So it's using those psychological tools that they can understand in terms of helping. And again, with the crowdfunding, with the money coming in, no one gives to an empty pot. I used this analogy earlier, like, those penny machines you get like on the pier and you put the money in and then it comes out the end. You never give unless there's enough pennies overlapping the end and it looks like they might fall. You're never going to be putting the money in when it's empty. Like, people just don't do that. So it's trying to get people to understand those things and using that group psychology and fear of missing out, and then stressing how hard it is. Also, make them go look at failed campaigns, because they'll find a lot more of them and probably at that same stage as they are at business, which will make them realize it's a lot harder than it is. Excellent.
We've hopefully solved some quandaries for any other crowdfunding consultants in the room. We're getting towards the end of our hour, and handily, Beatrice has asked the question, what kind of businesses and business activities do you support? Which leads me on very nicely to our wrap up. So let me just share my screen again. So as I mentioned at the start of the session, we're able to bring you these webinars thanks to our funding from the EU Regional Development Fund. And also as part of that funding, we at Sussex Innovation can offer up to 12 hours of support for SMEs and small businesses and startups. We're keen to work with any and all of you at the moment, and we have a range of specialisms within our team, from things like helping to set up campaigns, be it crowdfunding or be it more traditional means of investment, grant applications, marketing and social media and communications, market research and insight. So we've got a whole diverse range of things we can do within the team, as well as students and graduates who can help out with more of the kind of practical support that small businesses need. So please, Daisy is going to share a link in the chat, but please do get in touch with us if you have a specific business need at the moment as we emerge out of lockdown that you need some support with. Keep an eye on our Eventbrite page, where we will be sharing more of our future planned events in this series. We're just currently working out our schedule for July, so you can expect to see some new events posted on the Sussex Innovation Eventbrite page very soon. I'm sure Daisy is rushing to share that in the chat as well. And as I said before, we will be emailing all of the attendees from this event with information about everybody who's spoken today, sharing any resources that any of our panel want to share. And this session itself will be going up on YouTube as soon as we have time to edit down the video and cut out 10 minutes of me faffing around at the start. So that'll be going up on our YouTube channel, and also there's an article on the sync.co.uk website, which is hosting all of the previous panels that we've had in this series. So do go and take a look at that if you've missed any. So all that remains is to thank our guests. Thank you, Jes. Thank you, Dan. And although she's already left, thank you to Anna as well. And enjoy the lovely sunny day. Any closing things either of you wanted to say?
No, I think we're good. I think we covered it.
We've done it. We've done all crowdfunding in an hour.
Done. Concluded.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, both of you.
Cheers.
All right, we'll see you again next week, guys, for the next Survive and Thrive webinar. Thanks and goodbye.